what a lot of people don't factor in is that our body chews up more and more NAD as we get older, just through,
Absolutely.
yeah, increased inflammation, a little bit extra body fat, that sort of thing. 10 years ago, if you told me that we had a clock that sat on our DNA and gave us some indication of time, I just wouldn't believe it. But the reality is, Steve Horvath and his team have discovered this amazing thing that we literally have a timer on our DNA, which is reflecting how we age, how well we age, and how fast we're aging. So this is such a significant discovery.
I like the fact that you've brought that into the whole picture, rather than just this one-sided, just NAD, or more NMN and things. It's putting that apigen, and I think is one of a key thing, and then getting rid of that senolytics, the senescent cells, by using things like fisetin. Again, you're going to lower that inflammatory burden in the body. You're going to lower all that, inflammation going around. Well, hey everyone, welcome into Pushing the Limits. Fantastic to have you with me all again today. I've got my friend and a wonderful person who has just been so influential in my life. He has no idea that he has been, but he has. Greg Macpherson, welcome to the show again. It's fabulous to have you back on after a few near misses in the last couple of weeks. But thanks for making time for me today. I know you're a really busy man, so it's fabulous.
Good stuff, Lisa. It's great to see you, and I'm really enjoy catching up when we do.
Yeah, we do have lots of fun and talk a lot of because you live the life I would like to live, traveling around the world, meeting the most amazing, incredible people, being at the cutting edge of longevity science, and that seems to me like I'd be like a kid in a candy shop if I got to meet all the people that you do. So learning from you is just really fabulous. Now, you are the founder of SRW. Which is a very big, well-known, amazing longevity brand of supplements, and you do a lot of research in this area. Now, you've recently had a landmark study published. Can you go into, and this is pretty next level, like when I heard about this and that you managed to reverse aging in the study with nutritional supplements, I was like, what? How does that happen? So can you give us a bit of a rundown on this amazing study that you've just done and published?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Look, incredibly exciting study. And we, just going back 5 years, I formulated a bunch of supplements, if you will, that focused on the hallmarks of aging, which everybody's talking about these days, and you and I have spoken about in the past. And the hallmarks, for people who don't know, are just the key drivers of aging at a cellular level. As with a pharmacist background, when I looked at that paper that was outlining it, I thought, wait a second, these are actually key targets that we can focus on to see if we can modulate the aging process. So we formulated some products and it targeted specific hallmarks. And our name is SRW, which is short for Science, Research, Wellness. So a big part of what we do and core to our mission is researching to make sure that what we're delivering people has some evidence of effect. So we set about working with a company called True Diagnostic, which you'll be familiar with,
Yep.
to design a trial, and we carried it out in America, and we had 50 what I'd like to call free-range Americans. These are people that are healthy and are just out in the community, and we asked them to take our supplements for a year. And we also got them to do 10 minutes of walking a day and 5 minutes of mindfulness, just to get a handle on whether that may also impact on the effect that we saw. So the headlines are that we were able to reverse biological age by 5.71 years, which is just phenomenal. I think that this validates that targeting the hallmarks of aging is a good strategy for supporting healthy longevity. But what was really interesting as well, Lisa, was that these people came out of the body younger physiologically as well, right? So not just this nascent technology where it's about biological age and what all that means, because it's still being unraveled and unpacked, and there is much more to come. But things like grip strength, things like waist circumference, things like sit stand. So people were lighter, they were stronger, and they were leaner. So, and we're not talking Ozempic leaner, right? We're just talking about that gradual middle-age spread that we all enjoy, if you will, as we're getting older. We saw that reversing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, so these are really functional things. These are things that, well, I'm looking for constantly, like grip strength and sit to stand tests and, the waist circumference and your metabolic health. Absolutely crucial things. And it's not just the biological age that's being measured, which is also phenomenal. And we'll get into that in a minute, which clocks you used and, how that, because this is pretty, next level sort of technology that you've been using. But really to be able to do those things, those functional things that we know as we get older, we lose and we see our loved ones losing, that's pretty damn incredible. And you've done this with your cell system, which is basically a cell 1, 2, and 3. And can you explain that system, what's in those supplements, and how you sort of formulated that to cover the hallmarks of aging?
Yeah, so back in the day, which is only 5 years ago, there were 9 hallmarks that we were focused on. And so what we did there was to look at the different hallmarks and how they affect us at different times of our lives, right? So one of the primary drivers of aging is DNA dysfunction, if you will, or decline in function. David Sinclair explains it really well in terms of a DVD or a streaming podcast coming through, and if the fidelity is not there because the data is dropping out, then you don't get the perfect experience. Well, same thing happens in our cells, our DNA. The data starts to drop out, and it gets. This means that things don't translate from our DNA in the cells correctly. And you might find that a skin cell that was in your 20s was 100% a skin cell, becomes perhaps a quarter of a percent heart and quarter of a percent brain, and it's not being as the perfect skin cell that it can be. So these are the reasons why it's important to look after your DNA as a philosophy for your whole life. And the best way to describe it is like using sunscreen, right? You use sunscreen on your skin to protect your skin from damage from sun, which is radiation, which affects your DNA. And you look at the back of your hand versus the inside of your wrist. Same person, same animal, if you will, but the skin quality is completely different. And this is what looking after DNA, why you want to look after your DNA. So cell 1 is for someone who in their 20s and 30s and on, and I liken it to being sunscreen for your cells. It's a formulation that is designed to support all of the healthy processes that we have in our cells that look after our DNA all the time. So for example, so we've got astragalus extract, which is useful for telomeres and that sort of thing. So that's cell 1. And then cell 2 is the headline really there is it's about energetics. It's about how do we support your mitochondria. So this is something you might take in your late 30s to 40s when you start to experience your mitochondrial decline. But it's also focused on stem cells and intercellular communication as well. So like, how do we drop inflammation? How do we support all these healthy processes? And of course, when you look after your mitochondria, again, your audience will be well across this. But if you can keep the energy levels in your cells functioning, then they've got
Yeah,
the energy that they need, right?
yeah.
Then
Oh,
lastly, so in your 50s, everybody's heard of these zombie cells and senescent cells. Well, we just get a little slack at housekeeping in terms of cleaning up junk cells and so on. So that formula is designed for that specifically, and it's got things like alurapane, apigenin, and fisetin, which are known to support these elements of our cells. And one of the things I really quite liked about a formula is that we've got like a NAD precursor, which is NMN, in cell 2, which is really useful to boost NAD levels. But what a lot of people don't factor in is that our body chews up more and more NAD as we get older, just through,
absolutely.
yeah, increased inflammation, a little bit extra body fat, that sort of thing. So apigenin is a CD38 inhibitor, which stops NAD being broken down, and you don't really need it until you're in your 50s when you've got that extra little bit of weight or a little bit of extra inflammation. And but if you do have it, then it actually, what we're doing is we're putting more NAD into your body, but we're also stopping it being chewed up. So the combination all works synergistically at different times of your life. And it just means also that you're not taking what you don't need, because you give too much NAD to someone in their 20s and 30s, they get annoying with all that extra energy that they've got.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some downsides of having too much NAD at the wrong time when you're not doing things like the CD38 to inhibit, because if you have a lot of senescent cells and the inflammation is high, there are some possible connections between maybe feeding the inflammation by having too much NAD, but if you bring in the apigenin, and I even like to bring in things like quercetin and things like that to actually improve that whole NAD metabolism and stuff. So I like the fact that you've brought that into the whole picture rather than just this one-sided just NAD, or more NMN and things. It's putting that apigenin, I think, is one of a key thing, and then getting rid of that senolytics, the senescent cells by using things like fisetin. Again, you're going to lower that inflammatory burden in the body. You're going to lower all that, inflammation going around. So it's a real holistic picture, and it's a step 1, 2, and 3, and maybe you start with cell 1 in your 30s, and then maybe add cell 2 in your 40s, and then cell 3 in your 50s, and you've got a 3-part system that's hopefully going to attack all of these different hallmarks of aging. That's the whole picture behind it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, it's integrated, and like you say, it's not just about NMN, it's about what you put with it. And for example, we've got astaxanthin in Cel2. Astaxanthin is a phenomenal molecule that comes from algae, and it's a antioxidant which just slots beautifully into our cell membranes, and that's not just like the out cell membrane, but also the mitochondrial membrane and inner membrane and the nuclear membrane as well. So it's there. It's almost like a lubricant, if you will, so that when you then supply NAD, that mitochondria can utilize it efficiently and effectively. And we also have pterostilbene, which is a relative of resveratrol, but it's like a SERT activator, and SERT enzymes require NAD. So there's quite a lot of thought being put into the different pathways associated with aging, so that we can target them. And again, like the beautiful thing about this is natural ingredients are actually supporting the normal processes that we have when we're younger. So it's not about revving things too crazy. It's about just supporting those natural cellular processes, doing it gently, and through that supporting aging. And one thing that was really interesting in the study that really surprised me, Lisa, was that we made things a little worse at 3 months. And so what we did with True Diagnostics technology is we tested at ground zero, at 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
So we got this nice curve of what was going on, and in many cases, the first 3 months we were stirring stuff up, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Things were getting
Makes sense to
going
me.
back, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And then we got back to normal about 6 months. So I'm really happy we did a 12-month
yeah,
trial,
yeah.
because if we hadn't, I'd be probably rocking in a corner quietly over there, because we wouldn't have got the result that we were hoping for. The real magic happened in the second 6 months, and so it's a body's kind of done us a little bit of a reset, and then it's starting to support and slow that aging process down. So
Oh,
of course it raises questions, right? What do we do? Do we stop at 12 months and have a break, or do we keep going? So we're going to continue to do the research on that to understand exactly what the protocols need to look like.
that is so interesting, because as a clinician, um, I, I often see in that first 12 weeks or so that I'm working with someone, say someone's got massive dysbiosis in the gut, especially is one of those areas where it seems to pop up. They often get worse before they get better, and it's holding them their hand through that process. So the biology is resetting, and often with gut stuff you get dysbiosis, the Herxheimer reactions and things like that. So you've got a detox, right? You're restarting the machinery, and I sort of liken it to when you've had a car sitting in the driveway for 2 years and you haven't started it. When you start it up again, if it goes at all, it's going to cough and splutter and like go down the road like this, up and down for a time until the machinery is actually working again, and it's sort of going, oh yeah, I got this, I know how this works now, I remember how it works. And you're kickstarting machinery, and sometimes you can push on on one pathway, and then another pathway goes, oh, you know, you're using up this, you know, so you might need more of something else. And that's, you know, the artistry of being a practitioner and trying to work out which is the other pathway that's maybe being affected. You know, maybe you're lacking now methylation donors because we've you know, we've kickstarted your energy metabolism, we're using up more methyl donors or something like that, right? And so you've got to go, okay, what's the next step? And then try to hold people through that process, because a lot of people go, oh, I'm worse, I'm off, and you're terrible, you know? And it's like, so it's preparing them for that. So when you see that in studies, it does not surprise me. And sometimes you have to get worse before you get better. And for the machinery is starting to kick back in, you know, and that makes a whole lot of sense in a way, you know. But it's, and this is I think the successes that I've had in my life has been because I've pushed through the boundaries, and I'm very, very persistent. Like I just keep going one step after the other step, and if that doesn't work, and I'm trying something else, and I'm trying something else, and I never give up. Right, that's probably my one big strength, amongst the many lots of failures. But you know, when you do that, you push through plateaus as well. That's another thing I see, and that'll be interesting in your research. You know, do you plateau for a while before you take the next step up? And I've seen this very often in brain rehabilitation situations where you get to a certain level and then nothing happens for 3 months. You're throwing the bus at it, you're doing the same things that got you there, and nothing more is happening. And if you can hold through that line, you'll get to the next plateau. And athletes know this. Athletes have experienced this in their own bodies. So I think, you know, it's an easier sell, that concept, to someone like that they just got to keep going until they get to the other side of that. And that's why I think, you know, when you say, and I've heard you say in interviews, you know, like we want people to commit to a year of taking the cell system, the cell 1, 2, and 3. And it's like, amen, because that is the magic of it, I think, is that you give it time, give biology time. Like we're not talking about drugs that are completely blocking or completely stimulating pathways. We're nudging things in the right direction, and we're doing it, you know, in a gentle fashion, and things take a little bit longer, and that's the way it should be in nature. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we've taken, 50 years to get to the level of dysfunction we've got to. You just can't turn around on a, it's not a U-turn situation. It's a long curve. And your point around just keep going. I mean, it's a fantastic metaphor for life, for everything, right? I mean, you just turning up and persisting and focusing on what's best for you and your body and your job and everything is just such a great philosophy. And with this trial, what we've got is it's you're taking the guesswork out of and all the sort of the biohacking side of things. What we've got now is a clinically proven protocol, which makes sense because it's leaning straight into the hallmarks of aging, and doing it in quite a specific way, and we're getting results. So yeah, extremely happy about this.
Yeah, I think you are.
And
Yeah.
there's been all sorts of interesting snippets in it there as well, Lisa. One of the key things we found was that we halved the stem cell reproduction rate, right? So stem cells are your cellular bank account, and
Yeah.
if your body's under stress, you chew through more stem cells because there are a lot of cells that are dying that have got to be replaced.
Yeah.
We lowered that by half, which was quite
Oh,
remarkable, and we're still getting our heads around exactly what that means. But it's good because, the more money you can keep in that bank account, the better. And it means you're going to be more resilient. It means that if you've got issues down the road, that you're going to be able to deal with them longer. So that's something that not many people have focused on, but I'm quite excited about it. And, the less that you put pressure on your stem cell bank, if you will, or resources, the less chance you have of other issues occurring as well. Like, every time a cell reproduces, there's a chance something goes wrong. So if we can actually lower that rate, then potentially downstream, you're going to have some protective benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So stem cells, of course, are the, favorite thing in the longevity world now, stem cells and exosomes and stuff. And, and so anything that can protect those stem cells, and because when you use them up, so, like you are using up your whatever's left in the bank account, right? So you want to be able not have that, really quick turnover happening. Um, Now, this study used a whole lot of clocks as well, right? So
Yeah.
you work with True Diagnostic, and I've had Ryan Smith on here, and um, I've done the testing myself. I had really my first one came back at 0.69 on the Dunedin pace one, and I was like, woohoo, that was just one clock, but I was really stoked. That was a really important clock. Um, the second one went up after a few dramas with mum. Went up to was it 0.84 or something? But these clocks, there's different ones. There's methylation clocks, the Horvath clock, the pheno age, systems age. There's a whole lot of clocks that you use through True Diagnostic. Can you give us your picture on what these clocks do, how far along they are in their development, and then what can we derive from them, and what's still sort of, scientifically we're still working through the details of them.
Yeah, look, they're such a phenomenal discovery. And I was walking and talking with someone you may know, a guy called JP Margalis, and I've probably botched his pronunciation of his name, but he's a remarkable researcher. And he was just saying, look, 10 years ago, if you told me that we had a clock that sat on our DNA and gave us some indication of time, I just wouldn't believe it. But the reality is, Steve Horvath and his team have discovered this amazing thing that we literally have a timer on our DNA, which is reflecting how we age, how well we age, and how fast we're aging. So this is such a significant discovery, and for many reasons. And one is that it allows us to, what you can measure, you can manage. So we can actually start to get insight into what's going on at a cellular level in terms of how we're traveling through time. And also it allows us to measure interventions like the one we've just done with the cell protocol to see what level of impact is happening at a cellular level. Before these clocks, we would have to do a clinical trial for 100 years to get a sense of whether something is having a positive impact. And now it's a matter of, True Diagnostics clocks are sensitive enough that you can pick something up within 3 months, which is just phenomenal.
Mhm.
It's not just about supplements. We're now understanding that, if you're managing your stress well, if you're having a good diet, if you're exercising, if you've got really good relationships and you're sleeping well, then these are measurable interventions that cost us nothing, but apart from lifestyle, being quite mindful about your lifestyle, that can slow the aging process down. And it's a wee bit, I think, like understanding germ theory, right? Once we understood that germs
Yeah.
cause disease, we could we washed our hands before food and before surgery, and it had a massive impact. Now we're starting to understand that there are antibiotics which actually get rid of germs, and that's been revolutionary. We're now at a stage now where maybe this is the first penicillin. We've got the first measurable outcome that we've been able to slow aging, and so this will then, I think, a thousand flowers will bloom, and there'll be all sorts of opportunities that come from this. So I've got a list of all the clocks because I can't remember them all. I've got them here, but what we did is we worked with True Diagnostic. They've got a number of commercially available clocks, like the pace of aging that you talked about. But there's a lot of academic clocks as well because it is nascent. This is new science, and there is a lot of research going onto it. So we did the PC Horvath pan tissue, PC Horvath skin and blood, pheno age, Dunedin pace, omic age, and there's about 20 different clocks. So
Wow.
really significant clocks, and they're all seeking to understand, is it causation or correlation? What's actually going on, and what we do know is that lower biological age is associated with positive health benefits and lowered risk towards the conditions that we associate with older age. These come down. So the trick is, what does it mean when we stage an intervention in lower biological age? And it looks good and looks really positive, but we're still yet to definitively unequivocally work that out. But when you get a study which shows reduction in biological age across a lot of clocks, and they weren't all of them, some of them stayed like roughly the same, and a
Mhm.
couple went up, but the majority reversed age. But you pair that with physiological changes, which suggest someone is younger, then this is a really exciting
Yeah.
correlation and confluence of data, which suggests that we will be able to rely on these clocks. And the clever people at True Diagnostic have gone beyond just the biological age clocks. They're now starting to look at things like the measurements of biomarkers in our blood and
Mm.
whether they leave patterns on our DNA as well. And they've developed something called epigenetic biomarker proxies. So if you've got high cholesterol, you'll be able to, there's a correlation between the patterns on the clocks on your DNA and that high cholesterol. And they've done this across hundreds of different biomarkers. And this means that they can get really granular. So now, and you'll know this, but you can have a test and it'll say, how's your
Mm.
brain going? How's your liver going? How's your heart? And this
Organ system, yeah.
opens up huge opportunity for preventative wellness because, someone in their 30s might discover that their brain age is 10 years higher than the rest, which suggests that maybe they've got to focus on that area, and perhaps they'll prevent a condition from occurring down the road. And so this level of granularity of insight is just going to be revolutionary for all of us and will become the universal biomarker, I think, for how well we're all traveling through time and what we need to take to support the various systems which might be going awry. And if you think about sort of cancer at stage 0 and stage 5, if we're able to get Alzheimer's at stage 1, identify it, or cardiovascular disease at 2, and walk it back, we might not even get these diseases or defer them at significant time. So that's the excitement and potential of these clocks.
Yeah, and you do see variation in them, like you say. You don't. It is a nascent technology. There is some crinks to sort of iron out, if you like, and try to work out how do they correlate. And I've done a lot of their testing, and some things came back when I would, especially like some of the functional ones that would come back because they correlate things like grip strength just from your biomarkers. However they do that, I don't know. And I looked at them and I went, not really true. Like in my case, like just personally as an N of 1, like this was like my grip strength came back in the bottom 20%. I know I'm in the top 1%. So there was like some discrepancies, if you like, in some of those organ ones. So I think there's still some, and this was a year ago too, so things have probably moved on since then. But there's some changes. I had the privilege of actually interviewing Dr. David Furman from the Buck Institute on the eye age clock. That was really fascinating. I think that's got some very interesting future as well because it's proteins in the blood that they can measure just from a blood test and work out some of the immune markers and the chronic inflammation sort of markers. So that might be one to think about as well. We were actually hoping to do a clinical study with our company Avon that we've got up and running, and we're looking at the eye age clock as being one of the ones that we might do something with when we get enough money to do it, because as you know, this testing costs a lot of money, right? But that's a really interesting one. And I think all of these clocks are going to have their place and going to be, and when you get confluence over a number of clocks, that's when you're like, right, we're definitely on the right path. And when you put that with the functional markers like you've done, then you really, you're moving the needle in the right direction. And nothing's going to be perfect yet. We've got a lot of stuff to sort of do. But is this the very first time that a natural supplement has actually been shown to reverse aging, like reverse it? Is this the first
Yes.
time?
Yeah, I think I mean, I've seen other studies where it's been like they're just not so comprehensive, like there might have been one clock that's been used or whatever. But no, this is the first time that I'm aware of that we've put together multiple clocks, seen the reversal of biological age, and we've tagged it with the physiological changes that suggest a reversal of physiological age,
Yeah.
um, and then as well hadn't taken a deep dive into understanding what's happening with the stem cells, what's happening with the immune system. So it's a very comprehensive piece of work, and I don't even think there's a pharmaceutical actually that's been through the same kind of trial. So this is just incredibly exciting
Oh, how did you pull that off? That's pretty amazing what you've done there, Greg. You always seem to take on massive challenges and pull them off.
Well, it was a bit the farm moment, Lisa, I have to say. I mean, we had feedback. People were getting, benefits. We were experiencing them ourselves. But one of the risks with natural products is that something doesn't work, and of course, then that's a big problem. And it's why, quite often there aren't studies published, because people don't want you to know that what quite happened. So we took, I'd say, a relatively significant leap of faith with this trial, and couldn't be happier with the results.
Yeah, no, really couldn't. And, I mean, you've got the best scientists who have helped develop all of these, different supplements that you have in your range as well. And, these are people with, 30, 40, 50 years of experience. So, they're not just thrown together. And, I've taken out, cues from you and, on in our startup with Avum Labs, and, when we grow up, we want to be like SRW, if you like, because we want that same sort of rigorous approach. We want to have really good quality products backed by people who know what the heck they're talking about.
Yeah, look, you mentioned that, you're envious of the people I've met, but you've met so many more people. And so likewise, and what you've done is absolutely incredible. So, I think we're both doing is raising awareness that people can change their aging trajectory and extend their health span. They've got the control to do that. And I think the next generations of products are going to be absolutely phenomenal. We're working with a company called In Silico Medicine. I'm really grateful for that. These are the world leading AI drug discovery company, and they're pointing their machines towards nutraceutical discovery, if you will, and what combinations and permutations we can put together for best effect. I mean, we put our cell 1, 2, and 3 formulas together with I guess, human intelligence.
Yeah.
And we will have missed a few targets, and we might not have hit them quite correctly. So the next generation of our product will tidy that up, and we hope to see quite a significant boost. But at the same time, we're also focusing on the lifestyle elements as well. Like, how do we help you optimize a longevity mindset or a lifestyle? Because you can't out supplement a poor lifestyle. And I guess what was unique with the Initiate trial, which we're talking about, was we didn't dictate food or diets or anything. We just said to go for a walk for 10 minutes and be mindful for 5, which is achievable for everybody. But we didn't say don't eat your McDonald's. I mean, we don't encourage it, but it's like you just live and without extreme changes, and we still got a great result. So
Exactly. So imagine when you stack, because I'm a big fan of stacking things, as I said to you before, and I love stacking the lifestyle interventions and the all the different modalities and therapies that are available with the right supplements, and then you get the synergistic effect. And yes, we don't have all the studies to show that the synergy works, but when you know pathways and you understand biology to some degree, you understand how these things could synergistically work together. And then at this point in time, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith and do those things.
yeah.
And we absolutely do know that exercise is probably the most important thing that you can do for your longevity, alongside optimal sleep and not too much stress. I mean, those are just absolutely crucial. And then the food piece is also a crucial and a hard piece. But
Yeah, like our ancient predecessors would have been the healthiest people ever on the planet. I mean, they moved all the time. They the issue was they had saber-toothed tigers that were,
yeah.
the heels, and they had infections that were taking them out and causing all
Yeah.
sorts of problems. So if we're able to get back to that level of healthiness, along with the technology that we've got and the understanding of the aspects of the cells that decline with age that we can top back up, then we're going to herald an era of literally superhumans who are healthy into their hundreds, um, and not lucky to be healthy, because lots of people arrive there through good luck rather than good management. But the mission is, how do we take the luck out of turning up in good age and with good health? And we need to do it because we've got this population which is aging at a really big rate. It's billions of people in the next 20, 30 years are going to be over the age of 60. Half of them will have serious chronic health conditions if we don't start to fix things right now.
It's urgent. This
It
is
is urgent.
it's
Mm,
totally urgent. You know the statistics. I know the statistics. We're in this space all the time. We just are trying to sound the alarm bell. We
mm,
are heading for a massive problem. We've got an aging population. We're not replacing ourselves. We've actually got a decline in population coming in the next years. We've got not enough people to take care of our elderly. As someone who looks after a disabled person, for the last 10 years, and my mum, the impact that has on my career, my ability to contribute to the world is massively impacted. And thank God for technology that I can do this type of work. But it's a massive impact on our family, and I know that that's happening. Like that's millions of people being impacted like that, or stuck in rest homes, which nobody wants, for their loved one, really. Nothing disrespectful to the rest homes. They're doing what they can, but it's
mm,
not the level that you would want, often. And we need to sound the alarm bells. And we have the technology now, and it is coming faster than you can possibly imagine, that we're going to be able to live longer and healthier lives. So it's health span, not just lifespan, it's health span.
yeah.
And we know that, and we know that we're cracking the code. Like, these some brilliant minds out there that are cracking the code on this, and are really going to give us a chance to. On the other side, we've got horrific food supplies, horrific amount of toxins in the environment, chemicals that are killing us, and so on. That we're just putting glyphosate on our food and fluoride in our waters, and God, like, don't get me started on that side of the equation.
Yeah,
We can all be
yeah,
on the same side of the book, then we can really make a difference.
yeah. Future humans are going to look back at us, and in the same way we look at the Victorian Englands who used to chuck their poo pots out of the window each morning because that was just what you did, or the Romans who plumbed with lead all of their waterways because that was a nice easy way to make pipes, and then poisoned everybody. But we're
Yeah.
doing this on a mass scale, and so yeah, future humans are going to look back at us and just go, seriously,
How are you doing?
what
Yeah, like,
are you thinking? So
how are you thinking?
the beauty is that we're working it out, but it's going to take some time. And
And we're up against industry, right? We're up against big industry, and that's, when money dictates these things, and you get a better, more viable crop, and it's easier and less work and things like that's the problem, right?
yeah, yeah, we're going to experience a really positive shift, I think, soon, Lisa, in terms of just, energy will become abundant in the not too distant future, right? So we won't have any shortages. So it won't matter that we won't need to put pesticides on because we can afford to roll down and steam clean the plants or whatever we need to do to make them productive. And so we're all going to get, things will get tidied up as we solve that problem. So my, my message is, just be as healthy as you can for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
and then things could be quite different.
Yeah, yeah, and without getting political, with the regulatory side of things needs to move faster, because the science side of things is moving massively now with AI. You've talked to the professors and the people and the researchers who are now collapsing the time that it takes to do this research. Like with AI, like with in silico, what they're doing, they can do what interviewing Dr. David Furman, he said, I can do in my lunchtime what used to take me years.
Mm.
It's collapsed it that much.
Hmm.
And so we're making these breakthroughs, but the clinics and the regulatory systems are not breaking through that fast, and then we're miles behind, so that's where I see the roadblocks, massive roadblocks, and hopefully we can overcome those. And there's some good things happening in some places, and hopefully we'll be able to break through some of those roadblocks and actually get some of this new science out into the world and actually doing things. Greg, you've also published a second book because you had the first book, which was fabulous. Harnessing the nine hallmarks of aging, and now you've got Ageless, the new science of a slower and healthier aging. What did you cover in this book, and how does that relate to the work that you do at SRW? And tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, totally. So the book came about from just a desire to help people understand exactly what's happening within the longevity space. And I used to jump up on stage and I'd tell everybody they're going to live to 150, and I'd lose the audience in about 3 seconds. Their eyes would roll back, and I'm like, okay. So I learned from this that you need. I took people back to the future, as in look back and we looked at the incredible advancements that have happened over the last 100, 200 years that have got us to the point where the average human lives for roughly 80 years. And back 200 years ago, it was 35, right? It was,
Wow.
you still had people that were getting to 100, but there were very, very few. And so that's a short history of longevity as we've solved some of the major problems. And once people kind of get their head around that, they open their minds to actually what is coming. So it's a journey backwards, and then we go forward. And throughout the book, I had the real privilege of talking with a bunch of experts in the space. So I've interviewed them and embedded those interviews into the book, so you can hear about what the research they're doing, as well as what they recommend for everybody to do today to have a longevity mindset and longevity lifestyle. And so there's just really amazing insights into around about 18 of these experts: Eric Verdin, Audrey de Grey, people like that, who are just groundbreaking in terms of how they think about things and what they're doing. So, and then the final part of the book is a bit more on what we can all do, what are interesting compounds and molecules that we can take, and what the rationale is for taking those. And then ultimately, like try and imagine what a future might look like, and introduced a concept called the longevity work week, right? Which is, I think, what we need to do. We know that we've got to exercise and get good sleep and have good family relationships and set things up. But if we're working 8 hours or 10 hours, something's got to be sacrificed. Is it family? Is it exercise? Is it sleep? And a lot of people are proposing a 4-day work week. But my concern there is that we'll just sit on our backsides for an extra day and not do anything. So what I'd like to do is say, let's work for 5 days, but just work for 32 hours. And in the middle of that day, we get out and we do some exercise, and we do it with our friends, our colleagues. We can walk and talk, whatever you like. But we're building exercise into the day in a way that doesn't compromise our sleep, doesn't compromise our family time, and ultimately we're all fitter and healthier and building good relationships within the workplace. So I think that's just one of the key things that I'd like to float out there, and it's part of the book as well, is like, how do we create systems and frameworks and structures within our communities and societies which really take us back to when we're biologically in looking after our bodies and optimizing our biology.
Yeah, and this is like with AI come here, well, it's here. The marginal cost of intelligence is going to zero, and the marginal cost of labor is going to zero. We are going to have more free time, probably, whether we like it or not, in some places, but productivity is going to go through the roof. So this is we're heading into a time where in 4 or 5 years' time, we don't actually know where the heck the world is going to be, because all the old economic systems and things are not going to operate in the same fashion that they're operating now, especially say 10 years out when we've got, Optimus robots and things running around as well. But this is going to change the whole structure of society. And I think humans are going to have to find their purpose in other things than work as well. Even now, like with AI, the intelligence that we can tap into, and I use it on a daily basis in my little way, and of course the scientists are using it in a much deeper way, and the engineers and all those sort of people are tapping into this. huge body of knowledge that it's an extension of their brain, really. And all of these exponential technologies all coming together, where you've got multi-omics, you've got robotics, you've got, changes in the financial structure happening right now. You've got, all of these exponential changes happening to society. We're going to have to be adaptable. It's going to be an adapt or die sort of situation. And I think, there's going to be some massive positives, but there could be some rough rides in the midst of it there. So trying to find who you are, what your balance is, and trying to, cope in this world. I mean, I know in my own daily life, like the amount of screen time and the amount of having to learn every day new softwares and new programs and new AI things, and it's completely overwhelming, and this old brain hasn't really been made for that. So it's really about, me taking time just to go and sit at the beach and stare at the sun setting, like taking 5 minutes out and recalibrating myself into this world, because we sort of live in this virtual world way too much.
Mm.
And I think, I don't have all the answers for all this, but we've got some massive changes happening in the next 5 years, with all these exponential technologies converging.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. The way I've internalized it is that, we work until we're 65 and we prepare to retire and we take time off and start to enjoy the finer things in life. And there are a few people that are a wee bit lucky. They figure out and crack the code in their 20s or 30s or 50s, whatever. And I haven't, but you know,
Really?
but this coming technology is going to create an age of abundance, and it's going to mean that we're going to be able to retire before we even start work, probably. And so, yeah, we will enjoy lives where we can spend 10 years perfecting golf or surfing or poetry or chess or whatever human pursuits that we like. And the agents and the robots are going to be able to do that. And just like the very wealthy people have right now as the butlers and
Mm.
aids and the whatever, then these things are actually going to be pushed down and available to everyone. And so in this age of abundance, it's going to be quite incredible to be a human. And but the fundamental thing here is your health is your wealth. All right. It's like, how do we turn up in this interesting and incredible future being as healthy as possible? And certainly the young ones, if you will, the children growing up now are going to have a completely different experience, and people like you and I are going to need to be very adaptable to be able to come into this and
These
go
older
through it.
brain.
Yeah, but I'm up for it. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
let's see what happens. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I thrive on it, and you do too. Just thrive on learning every day. Sometimes to the point of complete overwhelm, and I, want to sit and rock in the corner and go, "Can we just go back to the old days?" But the potential of it is huge, and that's why the urgency of it for me is like I've got to keep up now. Like I've got to, because you and I were born in a generation before smartphones, before the internet. We didn't have any of this stuff, so it's a big transition for people of our generation, and of course for the older generation even more so. So yeah, it's going to present its challenges, but huge opportunities at the same time. So let's stay on the positive, and let's wrap up the conversation on that. What you're doing with your contributions to the world is just absolutely amazing, Greg. So thank you, and thank you for the influence you've had on my life and on encouraging me to start Avum Labs from the very beginning. When I said to you when I first met you, and I want to do this and I want to do that, and you went, well, here's how you might be able to get started with that. And so that sent me on a trajectory, and just given me a shove out the door, because you said I could. And so I thought, well, Greg thinks I can, maybe I can, and off I went. And, working with people like Peter Lerke and Dan has just been fantastic. So thanks for that little shove in the right direction that you gave us back then.
Yeah.
It's really.
Yeah, no, look, you're inspirational as well, Lisa. I mean, everything you do for your mum, everything you've done within the career of the running, and just your resilience and what you do and how you speak with people and bring all of this to a much wider audience that would never see it is just incredible. And there's a really cool saying I love, and it's the guy walking down a beach, and he's after a storm, and there are starfish just all across the beach, and he's picking them up as he's walking down and throwing them into the water. And someone comes up and says, "What are you doing? You can't make a difference." And he's going, "Well, I'm making a difference to this one, and I'm making a difference to this one." Well, that's what you're doing. Like, you're having a huge impact on a lot of people, and it can't be all the people, but for the people that do hear what you've got to say, and it's a massive impact. So I appreciate what you do as well.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. That's very humbling. Thank you so much. You're epic. We'll wrap it up there. And everybody, please, I have Cel1, 2, and 3 in my shop. So if you're looking for it after hearing all this and you want it, go and check it out there. Or of course, you can go to Science Research Wellness. Give us the places where we can find Science Research Wellness, and find your book, Ageless, so that people can go and dive deeper.
Yeah, certainly. So srw.co or scienceresearchwellness.com is our website. You'll find the book there. And yeah, come and have a look at what we're doing and start your journey, if you're not on it already, around how to be healthier for longer. And so that we can, all benefit from this incredible future that's coming towards us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Greg. It's been absolutely awesome catching up with you.
Likewise, Lisa, always.